Hey y'all, it's been kind of a crazy season, and the point of this video is to give you a little bit of an update and to talk a little bit about what it is like being somebody who's booked for speaking engagements. As I'm chatting with you, I'm going through my calendar. I'm going to take a look at all the gigs I did and keep track and make an account of like how many speaking engagements I did back in 2024. A question that I was asked recently was, how do I keep track of all of my speaking engagements? It's actually really hard without having any admin help. I might have to pull somebody in to help me back out now that it's picked up in timing and busyness. But a huge helpful tip that's been for me, if you're somebody who you're like, I don't have money to pay somebody to help me out. I'm not at that level yet. Totally understandable. I am still, doing everything on my own at the moment. And this is the first year I'm exploring what it would look like to have extra help. But a really helpful tip for me is when people let me know what they're interested in having me speak about. The first thing I do is I say, hey, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for thinking of me. Let me get back to you. And I actually had every single month of my calendar up against my wall in my office so I could see it. And I would highlight in green at one point when I would speak. So like this one right here was a poetry or speaking engagement. So this was Blue Llama in January. Yeah. Now it's interesting because I also, in addition to speaking, as I work with high school students, I speak to different classes, and it's like, well, does that count for poetry? So I definitely separate like poetry engagements, but then there's also motivational speaking or working in schools and things of that nature. But so I had color coordinated things. So red boxes was going to be me working with students, and then green was myself doing poetry. Just being honest, as the year progressed though, sometimes I couldn't find those markers. And then now there's like other categories that I'm like, okay, well, where does that fit in? Oh wow. So now I'm looking at February. So yeah, so that was a really, really helpful tip for me. Guys, I don't think I'm going to be able to multitask because there's actually so many speaking engagements. So I might have to like go through this without talking at the same time because this isn't working. But I'm still going to give you my top tips. And then at the end of the video, I will tell you how many speaking engagements I did in 2024. So the first thing I do is I let a client or the person that's reaching out to me, the organization, the nonprofit, hey, thank you so much for thinking of me. I am going to take a look at my calendar and I'm going to get back to you as soon as I can. Do you have any details about the event, time, date, etc.? So I wait to hear back from them about what they're saying. I check my calendar. I mark it in my calendar physically. The next step that I will do is I want to hear back the details. And the reason I want to hear back the details, I want to see if it resonates with me. For example, I got reached out to recently about doing a Good Friday service. I checked my calendar. The truth is, at that season, it's kind of looking really busy. And so I was like, let me know some of the details of the event and the rehearsal schedule as well. That's another thing that's important. Please let me know what the rehearsal time is going to be like. Another question I typically ask is, well, that's the thing. I don't ask this anymore, but now everything I do is custom. It's not typical that somebody will say, I really love that one piece you did. Can you do it again? That's less frequent than, hey, we're doing a service about this. Can you custom write something for Good Friday? Hey, we're doing an event and I just wrote this song. Can you write a piece about the power of art? And so I want to hear what they're looking for. And then I schedule a call. In addition to scheduling a call or a FaceTime or a Zoom call or a phone call, my objective is to get a feel for some of the words they're using and the vibe that they're seeking out in the midst of their opportunity. So for example, I'm speaking at a gala in a few weeks, and I asked a little bit about what they're looking for. There were key words that were mentioned. I slipped them I put those words in my computer, and then I get to writing. Now, everyone's a little bit different, but for me, I may start writing before I lock in the contract. Sometimes. And then sometimes I'm already doing the active next steps to lock in the contract. And sometimes they're happening simultaneously. But for me, I feel very motivated after the call, like the energy that you get from somebody when you heard a little bit more about the vision. So I go ahead and I write all of those details out. And after that call, I make sure I allot at least like 30 minutes to an hour of my own time, like when I hang up, to write, because I'm feeling energized. It's all at the top of my mind. So I might start to flow right away, women are blah, 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 blah. And then some of the keywords they wrote, and I might slip them in. I might start, thinking about a concept. And after that, after the call, I might email back, hey, thank you so much for doing that call with me. I just want you to know that I am totally in. I check my calendar. I'm available. Also, typically on the call, I would have asked, is this a volunteer opportunity or is this a compensated opportunity? Or they typically will say this, we're looking for you to do this, and this is our budget, and this is our rate. Is that something that'll work for you? I don't always say yes or no off the call, unless I'm really, really excited about the project. Sometimes I'm like, thank you so much. I'm going to get back to you as soon as I can, because I want to make sure I put it in my calendar. This is how you avoid double booking. Hello. I want to put it in my calendar. I kind of want to know the vision. I kind of want to know the scope of the work, because once you know the scope of the work, then you might be like, hey, actually, thank you so much. This is how much the compensation is. For example, a Christmas service is going to require multiple rehearsals, multiple revisions, multiple services. So you're not just doing like one performance in one piece. You're spending hours and time in staff meetings. You're at rehearsals. You're thinking about your clothing. You might have to buy a new set of clothes for that event. And you might be performing, at least for this past Christmas, like 4 services instead of just a 7-minute piece one time at an event. So the workload is very different for a 4 services Christmas service, where you arrive at the church at 6 a.m. because you're rehearsing, and then you don't leave till 1 o'clock, versus you show up to a gig at 5 p.m., you're on stage by 6 p.m., and you leave the event by 7 p.m., but you only perform for 5 minutes. So the price point is obviously going to look a little different based on the timing, the amount of rehearsals. And so for you as a speaker, it's important that in your own space, so I have a spreadsheet, that you're thinking about what is the amount of time I think I'm about to invest in this. What is the amount of time that's going to take away in my schedule? And is this worth the amount that is compensation? And for some things too, because you are the creative and it's your business or your gift that you get to decide. Sometimes I'm like, for example, I'm mentoring a youth student right now for the free, because she's speaking somewhere, but she was a student who participated in one of my Brave Space. She was a Brave Space student. And so I'm absolutely investing all this time for free, no compensation. And let's just say at the event she's going to speak at, they want me to open with some type of something. I'm going to say yes, because I believe in this nonprofit organization. It's an investment in the student that I work with. And I get to choose that, and it fills me up. And so you get to decide if some opportunities you're like, I would do it for free, or I'll do it for this low price point because I really believe in the vision. Or there's other projects that you're like, this is going to be a lot of work. I don't feel very motivated to do it unless it's a price point that makes sense. And I do think there are some challenges as a creative as you're building your business or speaking engagement business, because it's easy to just only choose opportunities that are going to compensate you financially. So I'm going to choose places that are big money. However, you have to think that there's going to be a lot of stress. And sometimes it's not about the money compensation. Sometimes it's about your soul. I get refueled when I work with the youth. I leave inspired. I'm going to write better pieces. I'm going to leave with more of an audience. I am performing alongside somebody who has way greater reach than I do. It's a networking opportunity. So I think there's just a lot more to think about than compensation when you're making the decision. Okay, so go back to steps. Somebody reaches out. I always say, thank you so much. I'm going to get back to you. You check your schedule. You start getting some more details about the event, times, rehearsals. You land the compensation or the deciding factor of how much money you plan on making, and you get to determine if that's worth it. Next, I do a contract. Not everyone does a contract, but I highly recommend it. Contracts, and it's easy to do. You could literally type it up in a chat GPT and be like, help me write a contract. I am a poet. I'm asked to perform for this, and this. This is how much I want to make at the end of the day or the hours. Can you help me write something up? Proofread it, edit it yourself. That's like my solid advice. So you could literally do that today so that you're set up for success. But a contract to me is so important because it is clarifying details for you and whoever's booking you. So if it's like, hey, I'm performing at your church service at 10 a.m. And they're like, actually, I'm so glad you put that on there. You need to be at rehearsal at 6 a.m. or 6:30 and sound check begins at 7 a.m. Can we edit that? And then you're like, oh, so I'm going to be there 3 hours before the service. Got it. I need to put that in there. But it's helpful for you as a creative that you're not dropping any balls or having miscommunication. And then in addition, same for them. You get to clarify some of your rehearsal schedules. You get to clarify payment details. I need a 50% deposit before arrival, or my check is due after the performance, right? Whatever you decide those parameters yourself. But it has been really, really helpful. I remember when I first got started, I didn't have contracts, and then things kept changing and it was really stressful. Now, there are a few different categories. For me, I public speak or do poetry, but sometimes I might be working with like a jazz band, and that's a little different. I've been really, really blessed where I've worked with people that I have trusted. And so in the music world, it's interesting because sometimes it's just like a text. It's like, hey, this is how much, but asking those clarifying questions. How much do you plan on making? How much are we making? When's rehearsal? And what time is sound check? And do you have a dress code you want us to wear? Dress code, something I didn't talk about. Dress code is also very important because you want to make sure you're matching and you're trying to figure out, you know what I mean? The worst feeling is when you show up somewhere and honey, you are underdressed, okay? Yeah, we don't want that. We do not want that. So, I'm starting to get hot as I talk to you guys. So sorry, I'm taking off my sweater. This is a tan shirt underneath. Don't be thinking this video's inappropriate. I'm saying a lot. So yeah. So you land compensation, you land contract. I would have somebody sign that contract. For bigger projects, I have a deposit. For smaller projects, it might just be paying, day of. But the contract also protects you and it protects the other person. Now I can understand some people may feel like there's some awkwardness. It doesn't have to be. And if there's a last minute opportunity and you feel like, okay, a contract is a little too formal, there have been circumstances where I just need some type of text thread, email thread. I need a record of some sort of the scope of project and the amount that was locked in. Another common mistake I did very early on, before a few years into being a speaker, creative, poet, somebody who's booked in terms of speaking, is that I would just be like, yeah, I would love that opportunity. Thank you so much for considering me. I didn't ask these questions. And then I would like be performing or be somewhere and just wondering, am I going to get paid? Am I not going to get paid? And it would also be confusing because it's like, I never agreed to anything. And so you might have put in the gas, the driving, the work, and then didn't get, didn't get what it was worth. Yeah. This video is getting a little long, but there's one final point that I definitely want to give to you. And maybe I'll expand on this topic. But so what happens when you agree to an opportunity and now you're at the opportunity and it is not feeling right? Let's talk about it. Let's just say somebody booked you, but you can feel that the person that's in charge is just giving yucky vibes, just not easy to work with. Whether it's because they're very dominant and not honoring your craft, or they're insecure, because that happens too, and they're kind of all over the place and you're like, so what are we doing? My recommendation is you are a thermometer, not a thermostat. there's a balance because you are the talent that is hired to be there. But you want to be joyful, you want to be easygoing. Yeah, totally understand. Whatever, absolutely. Would you like me to make that decision? Would that be helpful? Or hey, as the poet that's the expert, I so appreciate that, you think that we should begin this. But may I make a suggestion? I really think it to enhance the show that we should consider this. But I'm going to do whatever you think is best, right? So make sure that you're that way. There are some times, though, that leader, because of whatever reason, their own brokenness, it still may not work out. And what I mean is you perform the gig and you leave going, I hope they never book me again. Or that just didn't feel good. I want to encourage you. That may have nothing to do with you. It may have everything to do with some type of culture you're stepping into or that person that's leading. And I just want to encourage you that this is not a sign that you shouldn't do this. Do not self-sabotage. Do not be like, I'm not built for this. Do not misinterpret that maybe your work wasn't impacting people. You may have impacted people still, but you're the only one feeling the culture or the weird mess up or whatever. I want to encourage you as the creative have every right that if they contact you back to do a gig and you just don't feel valued or you don't feel like it's worth it, you don't say that to them, but you do say something along the lines of like, hey, I'm so sorry, my availability doesn't work. Yeah, you get to protect the energy. Now, if it's worth the financial aspect of it, then you choose that too. You ultimately get to decide the boundaries that work for you, and you ultimately get to decide who you want to work with. But I do want to talk about that because I do think as creatives, sometimes we we beat ourselves up a little bit and we're like, was that me? I know for me, a flaw of mine is I just assume I'm the problem. I'm like, ah. But sometimes I'm a very strong woman. I'm very communicative. I'm very relational. And I'm not afraid to advocate for things or what I think is best. And some people may not like working with that. And that's okay. But the amount of energy one has to utilize, if it's not a good fit, you could find other opportunities where it just is an overflow and there's more than the compensation. It's like you're feeling recharged, re-energized, and you want to work with people that I can get 5 gigs from them. They're giving me referrals, yeah. So I'm going to count how many speaking engagements I did back in 2024. I said back, it's only been a few months. And then that is my tips for you in 2025 as you are a speaker. Hold please. Guys, as promised, I did an inventory of all the gigs I was booked for 2024, and I want to give you the results. Let's go. Okay. Last year, rewind. 2023, I am pretty sure I spoke like 12, 15, 16 times. I need to relook at it. I'm not going to go try to dig in for it right now. 2024, let's talk about progress. I spoke 26 times. 26 times. Yeah. I am not including me speaking with youth that are paid opportunities that relate to like classroom settings, mentorship. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being paid as a talent. So whether I'm the MC, whether I am the poet, I even included that I officiated a wedding. But I feel like I shouldn't have included it because it was an unpaid opportunity, but it was my friends. But it is a public speaking engagement. And then obviously public speaking. So, 26 opportunities. Now, what's fascinating about these opportunities is that there's a percentage of them that I'm not comfortable sharing, actually, how many were unpaid. Most of them were paid. More than half were paid. Way more than half. I wish I could do statistics. I don't know how to do math, but A majority, that's a good way to do it. A majority of my gigs were paid, some were unpaid. But I want to talk about what opportunity do you think had the most exposure? Drum roll, please. The unpaid opportunity. I spoke for TEDx. It is a platform that has great exposure, and it was $0 from it. And so this is your friendly reminder. If you are a creative and you're trying to get your booking schedules in order, think smart. Not everything is compensation financially. Sometimes it's exposure. Sometimes it's networking. Sometimes there's one particular client that was a large portion of my gigs and opportunities. And they also were the same client that I also did some unpaid opportunities for. But when I look at my financial breakdown, those unpaid opportunities allowed for other paid opportunities. Does that make sense? And so I was willing to do certain things like sit in on a panel. There was another opportunity that related to a nonprofit that I spoke again, before a youth spoke. And yeah, those things are really important because they also are a part of building your portfolio and building your network and building your experience. It's a great opportunity to test out new material. It's a great opportunity to build closer relationships. It's a great opportunity to get other opportunities. So this is your friendly reminder. As a creative, some things are going to be paid, some things are going to be unpaid, but you still should do what you feel feels fair and feels valuable of your craft, and go after your dreams. My hope for you is that this is the year that you are getting booked.